Good afternoon from Hopalong Hollow. This is Jerry, and I'm back from visiting my precious little grandson, who is a little sweet pea. And I'm back to the garden, and this one's doing really well. This is the large cutting garden. It's very, very bright right now. I'm not really into these bright colors, but they make nice bouquets, let us say. We'll go back to this one at some point in the very near future. But what I'm going to work on today is the potager, which has really gotten crazy while I've been gone, and I have a lot of work to do in there. I've got a bee in my bouquet. It's my favorite kind of bee, a bumblebee. We can start out with this week's bouquet, which I was able to pick this morning. So these are flowers that are fresh from the garden. So we have larkspur once again. We have the white larkspur, and we have these deep purple larkspur. One little poppy. These are the last of the poppies, and there are just a few little sweet peas in here because they haven't really started blooming yet for me. And then we have one of the true blue flowers, the forget-me-nots. Forget-me-nots are called the keepsake flower, keeping the beloved in memory. Delicate, grown from seed, cottage flowers, annuals. Very easy to grow, sown directly into your soil. Jar, we have once again the purple larkspur with their pods. We have some feverfew, which is basically considered probably a weed or a wildflower. We like it though. I let it grow in the garden. And the insects really do love this too. The pansies have been very reliable, and they just keep on going. If you keep deadheading these, you will just keep on getting blooms. And then of course we have the Queen Anne's lace, also known as cow parsley. The flowers on the Queen Anne's lace were compared to the Queen's frilly headdress. And in the very center, there's a little dark flower, and that would be the single drop of royal blood. But it was considered bad luck to bring Queen Anne's lace into the house. Also in the rain, these bow down in the rain, and that protects all the little flower head seeds. And then when the sun comes up, up they rise once again. So Queen Anne's lace has always been a favorite of mine, and it's one of those wildflowers that just grows out in the fields and the meadows. All my Queen Anne's lace came from our meadow, and I just transplanted some, and then I let a lot of it just blow in from the field, and it went right into the garden. So now this was my list of things that I had to do before I left town, and it's a pretty short list. Unfortunately, I didn't get to do any of those things. Well, I shouldn't say unfortunately. I had a wonderful time meeting my wonderful little grandbun, whom I have named Sweet Pea. But my list now is quite a bit longer than this. I've already been pretty busy trying to clean out the potager because it really, really got crazy in the last week while I was gone. I've got an entire cart over there of things that I've had to pull up. Now, it started out, it's actually got layers to this potager. It started out in early spring with bulbs. We had tulips and hyacinth and allium, and muscari, what else? Oh, daffodils, of course. We just had loads and loads of bulbs. And then after that came the spring flowers, the cottage flowers, which you saw in the last video on the cottage garden. You saw that it was absolutely full of oxeye daisy and poppy and larkspur. Well, those have gone past their prime and were going to seed, so it was time for me to pull those up. Now I've really got to do some cleanup here, because although I love a sort of a wild and crazy cottage garden. I don't like a wild and crazy vegetable patch. I like a nice tidy vegetable patch. So I've got my work cut out for me here, and there's all kinds of debris laying around and it doesn't look so great. But we'll just get in there and see what we can do. Because that third layer in this garden is going to be vegetables and fruits. One of the first things I did was to collect a lot of the seeds. So the foxglove and the poppies, just because I really want those little poppy heads. I just think they're cute. And the foxglove I started to collect earlier. I had cut them down, many of them, when they were green. Because if you want to save the seed, it's better to pick them when they're green and let them dry just in the air. Otherwise, those little seed pods, they just explode right there in the garden, and they disperse all the seed right there where they are. And that's great if you're trying to naturalize the foxglove in that area. But if you want to save it for another area, pick them while they're green. And then as they turn brown, like this one right here, looks like it's ready, you just clip those off and pop those in your jar. These are the larkspur seeds pods. I think they're really pretty. They're going to be nice in arrangements for a little while. I really didn't want the larkspur to go to seed. I got to it too late, otherwise it would have kept on blooming. But nevertheless, I got a lot of seed here. And then these were a lot of the alliums, and look at, aren't those great? Explosions on those spears. And there's some things that we can do with these. They look great as natural for arrangements and that sort of thing. But you can also spray paint them like this and use them in other ways. You can even spray paint them while they're still in your garden, and nobody's going to even know that they aren't still full of color. I have got a lot of work to do to get this garden back in order. It's just amazing what a garden will do after just 1 week of being away. But out of town for a week, and this is what my potager looks like. It's a disaster. I've been pulling out the oxeye daisies and the old poppies, and I'm trying to clean it up so I can get the vegetables going in here now, which should have been transplanted in here at least 2 weeks ago. But, you know, sometimes you get a little bit behind on these jobs. The walkway has been really taken over. You know, I don't mind that when it's the cottage garden going. But now it's time for the vegetables to start growing. And I really want to clear my walkway. But I sure hate to throw away really good plants. So these primroses, I will just dig those up, and I'm going to put them in another garden that doesn't have any primroses in it. This is called pennyroyal. This is a creeping mint. It's fantastic in your walkways if you're trying to, you know, fill them in. And you can keep it under control. Mints are pretty notorious for really spreading. And this one will spread, but you can actually just keep it under control by cutting it way, way down with your scissors. I've already cut it down once, and then we've also got creeping thyme, which I love, and I'm not going to do anything to that. I'm just going to let it keep on growing. Oh, this place is just incredible with bees right now. Happy little bees. And so many of these are solitary bees. That's what you want your bee hotel for. I have 2 videos on making a bee hotel. That's a honeybee. And these are, oh, I love these big fat, well, they're carpenter bees and they can be destructive, but I do love carpenter bees anyway. But these alliums are so attractive to all sorts of bees and wasps. These are one of my favorite alliums, drumstick alliums. Just the look at the color on those. Aren't they gorgeous? If you're planting flowers alongside your vegetables in your potager, your kitchen garden, or your cottage garden, whatever you may want to call it, and they die an ugly death, which is what these poppies do. And they're very short-lived, really, the poppies. They're not around for a very long time. So what you want to do is you want to pull all of them out, and that gives you another new space for planting. And so along here with this elephant garlic, which I planted strictly because I wanted these flower heads, and wow, they're so busy in here all the time. But that's right down the center. And now I cleared out all those poppies, and I also had some blue alliums growing right down the center here. But in the beginning of the year, this was a strip of daffodils, so those bulbs are still under there. And in the front, there were hyacinth and muscari growing right there. So here again, you see the layering that is being done. So first there were the bulbs, then there were the spring flowers. Now it's time for the summer flowers and some vegetables. So the plan in here is, look at all my freebies. These are zinnias that have just come from dropped seed. From 3 years ago, when I used this strip as a zinnia bed, seeds are still coming up from there. So I always have a lot of beautiful pink zinnias that I can put in other places, because I don't want them in this strip. I'm going to pull them up. They're in the sidewalks, they're in between the bricks, they're in this bed, and they're all over the place. But those little zinnias won't go to waste. I think I'm going to just transplant them just a little bit farther over and put them behind the garlic, because in this strip here I want to plant beets. And I plant things that we like to eat. That makes sense, doesn't it? But I like pickled beets, so I want to do a row of beets here, and then not sure what that big bed's going to be, although I do know that right in the center there will be tomatoes for my husband. He's the tomato guy. And then I've got a lot of green peppers that might go in along there. Green peppers, yellow peppers, red peppers. So we don't plant a whole lot in this potager as far as food goes. We do have dwarf blueberry bushes, fruit trees, and the strawberries, and many different herbs and lettuces. But we don't live off of our garden as many people do. And there's just the two of us, so we don't need a whole lot in this garden. But once again, I'm trying to concentrate on what is this going to look like with zinnias growing there in the background, and I think it's bull's blood beets, which are really beautiful to look at, growing along here in the front. Here's another good example of the layered planting. Right here in the potager, you may have watched the video that I did when I planted this full of bulbs. This is the old wheelbarrow. I put in hyacinth, tulips in the center, muscaris all around the edge, and right here the drumstick allium. Well, the other bulbs have since gone, and I also had little purple pansies growing in here. Well, all those are past, and now I put on another layer of compost after I pulled out all the old foliage, and I can see here that the little pansies have reseeded themselves. They're all throughout here. They'll have to be thinned out, but here we'll have pansies once again. I put in some nasturtium seeds. I think I'll put more nasturtium seed in, because I love the nasturtiums and the fact that you can actually pop those in your salad. And this is a potager, so this is a kitchen garden as well as a beautiful garden. But that's another example of the way you can layer for one different set of plantings after another. And what I use in between plantings is I just go through there with my compost, and there are about 4 or 5 inches of compost laying right here. And this is what I will plant in. This will act as my mulch. It'll also act as the nourishment for the soil. You can buy compost by the truckload off Craigslist or wherever else you can get it at a garden center, or you can just buy bags of it like this, which came from Walmart for $1.84, and I just pick up about 10 bags of this whenever I go to Walmart. because I use it all over the place. I like it. It doesn't have weed seeds in it. Last year, we bought a huge truckload of compost off of Craigslist, and it smelled really great. It was very, very black. I thought it was so perfect, but unfortunately, I had all kinds of really weird weeds that grew up in it. Weeds that I had never had on this property before. So you have to be really careful where you get your compost. I had to redo my funny little fence here because it was 3 years old and I wanted to revive it, so I completely tore it out. I did a really wild looking wavy fence here using whatever I had. I just love it when it starts to rain or sprinkle right after I put in my plantings or planted seeds. Seems like a good sign to me. Looks like I'm going to get rained out, but that's okay because I've really accomplished a lot in the potager. I've gotten rid of all the spent cottage flowers, and now it doesn't even look like my little cottage garden anymore. But that's okay because I'm in my 3rd layer now for this garden, and it's time for the fruits and vegetables to take over. And as you can see, I've cleared out a lot of the old spent plants. I've laid down layers of compost, and in that compost I've been able to plant those plants that wanted to go in, such as the sweet peppers and the tomatoes. I've got squash and cucumber, several things in here, and I'm not done by a long shot. I still have a ways to go, but it looks a lot different, and it does look a lot tidier because this is the potager and it is vegetable time. So I think I will close this video right now and finish this job tomorrow, and I'll show it to you when it's all done. From Hopalong Hollow, this is Jerry. Oops! Before I leave, I wanted to show you a quick video clip of Stella and Solomon. Those are the goslings we adopted for Matilda the goose a couple weeks back, making merry in the creek. Just a quick clip. You can see how much fun little geese have in the water. You are having a good time, aren't you? You are such a pretty little goose.